It's math, baby.
Well, I was never very good at math.
Math, baby. We are here, and here we go, making the Backpack Show again. And I'm outside in Boston. Here's your weather report. Local weather report in Boston from the Boston helicopter is that there's a blizzard out my window.
Yikes.
Yeah, there's like 7 or 8 inches of snow, and my downstairs neighbor is already telling me, "You got to move your car. You got to move." Like, I got a TV show to run, buddy.
Well, no snow in Nashville. It was chilly and a little rainy. So now you're fully up to date. Welcome to the Backpack Show, where we give you weather reports from 2 U.S. locations, either of which you probably live in. So
today I am super elated. Story rolls by me that I see this whole experience with Charmaine McGuffey, who has been doing very dutiful work as a law enforcement in Ohio, in Hamilton County, Ohio, and has a jerk-ass boss like some people do, but has a jerk-ass boss who also isn't all super thrilled with the fact that Charmaine is lesbian. So this gets a little crazier and crazier and crazier. And then she says, you know what? I think I'm going to run for sheriff, which is that guy's job, her boss's job. And she won.
You left out the part where he fired her.
Oh, yeah, he fired her. But,
yeah.
But then she won.
But that makes it so much sweeter that she won.
No, revenge. I mean, justice. Okay. So this is what the show is about today. This show is about cold justice.
Cold justice.
Cold justice.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Cold Justice is our subtitle for the show today.
I'll never get tired of that intro. So on the Backpack Show, we bring you insights into success from unusual places. And I think today you're going to learn a lot about grit, determination, and the power of positive change.
And how can you get more successful than getting fired and then kicking a boss's butt? I'm sorry. I'll calm down. Charmaine's a law enforcement person. She's a servant of the people. She maintains a jail. Jails are hard to run because you have to. These people have done their thing. They're in there whether or not they're say they should be. But you have to. There's a lot to it, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk about jail stuff.
And I want to be clear about this too. Charmaine didn't just take the job to win over her jerky ex-boss, which is great to do. She's got a platform for reform.
She can show a lot of other people what law should look like in Hamilton County.
Charmaine will be the first female sheriff, the first LGBTQ sheriff in Hamilton County.
Woo!
History making this victory.
Someday when Kate Colgan wakes up, because she's busy doing other things right now. Meanwhile, Rex got up over in Oregon, but
over on LinkedIn.
Rex holding down LinkedIn. But when Kate gets here, she'll be cheering extra loud. So, all right, let's get Sheriff Charmaine here. Sup, boss? How are you?
Hi, y'all. How are you? Good to see you both.
Good morning.
Happy to see you. I'm presuming you don't also have a blizzard. Otherwise, you'd probably have to be.
Oh, no. We don't get snow here in Cincinnati anymore. It's always just ice, and a little dusting. That's it.
Who'd have thunk it? You were saying that one of your primary duties is to run the jail, and I want to get to that. Mm-hmm. But what I also want to get to is, what was your job like, bad boss and all? Mm-hmm. that led us here. Like, you get into the force, you have this dream that you want to do law. Let's go way back to when you thought, I think I want to put some tin on my shirt and run around helping the world get better.
Right. So it starts out 33 years ago. I'm a 33-year veteran of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, and I started out as a jail service officer. That's how I came into our department. And over those 33 years, I gained in rank. 3 different sheriffs promoted me: sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and then I became the major of jail and court services. And in that role as the major, I commanded a staff of some 600 uniformed personnel, and I was in charge of the care and custody of 1,400 prisoners. So I had a very big job.
So the jail that you're looking over, that's a 1,400 bed facility. That's big.
Well, interestingly enough, it's actually an 840 bed facility.
That houses
1,400 prisoners in it. Yeah.
Because that goes really well.
That works great.
Sure.
Now, you don't. One thing that's really has to be said in these kinds of moments is your job is to execute and carry out the law. You can't exactly influence law, but you have a million opinions. How does that get up there? How does that get to legislatures? What do you have to do to keep making sure people understand your needs over there? How do you keep speaking out? You're rolling in as sheriff now. You have, like Kerry said, you have this whole new platform. What's that going to be like to sort of make your opinions known as well as just do your job well enough to keep the job?
Right. And, it's one thing to have an opinion and talk about it to people and tell people how you're going to do things. But what really creates change is showing people how it works. And that's exactly what I did. When I was the major of that jail, I created reforms. It was my job, my goal, in fact, when I took over as major, to move us out of that 1950s system. I mean, we were in a very archaic system, and when I say that, this is what I mean. People come to jail and you lose lots of things when you come to jail: jobs, cars, family, lots of things. And then after you're in jail for a while, we open the door and we send you back out and we say, now do better with less. And that's a 1950s model. So I sought to change that. And I brought in a women's heroin recovery program, cool. A men's veterans program for male vets who have lost their way and they need help with housing and jobs and so forth, and a men's exit program for men who have like 3 weeks or less on sentence, so that we can get them connected to somebody when they walk out that door.
Well, that sort of through line of the story is super important. It's when your point about losing your way, when something happens in that scenario, it can happen to anybody. Someone can find their way into the system for a lot of different reasons. One quick thing, Rex, I'm sorry, Washington and Oregon are the same to me. I don't care. So not the same. But your point about women's heroin treatment, men's veterans treatment, you immediately said everybody's not cookie cutter here. That is so good from a social standpoint. That is so good from a social justice standpoint. That's not how law enforcement wants it to go in general, stereotypically. And that is certainly not how the boys club sees it. How did this get heard? And what did you do to kind of make your voice matter in that whole story, Charm?
Well, when these programs were conceptualized, I had a committee that I formed when I took over as major. I invited people in from Hamilton County, service people from anywhere. Everyone was welcome to the table. And through those meetings, once a week for years, the same time, same place, we fashioned those programs. Well, at first I thought, gosh, I'm going to need some money, right, to do a little bit of this program for the women in heroin recovery. So I went to the county commissioners at the time and I said, hey, I want to start this. And I had a PowerPoint and I had the whole 9 yards laid out. Here's how we're going to spend some money. And I think I was asking for like $100,000. I mean, I just needed some start money. And I was told by one of the county commissioners at the table, when I finished my presentation, we are not going to fund this if you don't start it with the men first. And I said, well, then I guess you're not going to fund it because I'm not backing down. The women in historically in incarceration are underserved, undereducated. They do not receive same services oftentimes. They're overlooked. And I said, we're going to start it with the women. And if we can make this recovery program work with the women, oh, believe me, I can fashion it for the men. That's exactly how I said it. Women have lots of needs that are important because women are heads of the household. They have children. Typically, their health issues need to be taken care of, particularly women that have been out living on the street, out in some very hazardous situations and horrible situations that these women have been in, and they need to heal, and we need to provide services for them. And that's what I did. So I went forth with all of these programs that I created without any funding. I found out, you know what? I don't need funding. We'll get it done without that. And we did.
Wow.
People want you to come talk to their sheriffs.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got William over here in Allen County. He wants you to see Sheriff Matt Treglia when you're done doing your work.
When you're done with this. After
your neighbor, I guess.
And Coach Woodard says his wife ran the mental health program at the Denver Women's Prison and noted that a huge challenge was releasing inmates when their sentence is complete without any resources. You're just like, okay, bye.
That's it.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rex in Washington points out that it's a great lesson. It applies everywhere. Washington or Oregon.
That it's not difficult for women in law enforcement to begin with. It's a difficult profession, a difficult environment. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you managed to get things done?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just go way back. When I was 14, I decided to be a police officer. And I announced that to my family. I was very fond of announcing things. I was told by my uncle, who was a retired police officer, that's not possible, Charmaine. You get that out of your mind, because women cannot be police officers. They just can't. And he was right. I mean, this was the late 60s. Women could not be cops. We were not allowed to put on the uniform and be a peer to the men that work in a department. And, the whole time he was explaining to me how I should enroll in some typing courses and so forth to get a real career. I was planning to do it. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to do it. And I did. So I went to University of Cincinnati ultimately after high school, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And interestingly enough, just when we were graduating, because there were just a handful of women in there with me, is when the law changed. And that was the early 80s. So, the law changed. Women could be police officers. Women could work out on the street. And so I was in that first wave of women that came out. And quite honestly, a lot of the men out there just didn't know what to do with us. They didn't, it was an adjustment period. And there were some men that adjusted well and did okay, but there were a lot of men who resisted it, quite frankly, and there were a lot of things that we women put up with and, ignored and went along with, and whatever we had to do to fit in, because in a police department, you better fit in. I mean, this is a group of people who are there to support each other, and you can find yourself in some life and death situations. And oftentimes, and I'll just get a little serious here, there were some women that would communicate to me how fearful they were that if they made any of the men angry or didn't fit in with the officers they worked with, they were fearful that they wouldn't get any support, that they wouldn't get backup. If they called on their radio and said, I need help right away, would these guys really go 90 miles an hour, or would they go about 40, right? And this was something that we had to be concerned with. I think it's much less today, but I have the stories to prove it.
There's so many places to take all this. We have to look at all these things from the community that we serve. Because
Rex says,
so many
I like that. I don't need no stinking funding. Annette says so many powerful messages here. Cadence, the same time, same place for weekly meetings, and not backing down with the energy of Joan of Arc, she says. Hi, Len Joy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Favorite. Chris's mom thinks you're awesome.
I need to point out that my mom was the first female draftsperson in Maine. My mom was one of the first women in the telephone company to do pole climbing school, because that was a man's thing to do.
Yeah.
So I know when she says she's awesome, she's over there, fist in the air, because she was one of those ceiling breakers like you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
awesome.
you kept hitting walls along the way, but didn't skip a beat. You just climbed over them.
Did you think that though? When did you want to quit? Like, did you just go, forget it, I'm done?
Wow. There were some hard times, I have to tell you, in my career during that 33 years that I just, I would ask myself, can you go on? Can you move farther? Because I was achieving rank. And there are some women in law enforcement that'll tell you, when you start pinning the bars on your shirt and so forth, you actually put a little target on your back as well. Mm-hmm. Life becomes just that much harder. And that's what happened with me. I'm no different. And there are so many women like me who weathered that storm. And there were times, particularly as a lesbian. I mean, let's not forget that. That was that was something. And at the time that I joined the department, I will tell you, I knew that if I came out as a lesbian, and I've been a lesbian my whole life, if I came out, I knew I would be fired. I knew I would not be promoted. I knew that I would be, ostracized. And so I had to keep that on what I called the down low, right? I never lied about it. I never was trying to be anybody than who I am, but I had two separate lives that I led. I led my personal life and I led my professional life, and the two did not intersect. And that is the way I stayed safe for the longest time in my job. One of my bosses, one of my sheriffs, was notoriously homophobic. I mean, they actually made a movie about him because of it. So, yeah, I was on the down low.
So when you were outed, then you didn't.
I was outed. No, I didn't choose to. Yeah, I certainly didn't choose necessarily this path. It just, it's just what happens when you stand up for what's right. That's my belief. And yeah, I was outed. I was at a gay bar 10 years ago. And, really, we were over there. It was just in Kentucky, right across the river here. And we were just watching a basketball game. It was the Final Four. And we had just decided to stop in there and watch the game. So game was over. We were leaving. It was about 11 o'clock at night. It was dark out, rainy. There was nobody around. I mean, it was dead. And as we were walking to our car, just myself and four of my female friends, we started getting screamed at. And I didn't know where it was coming from because it was dark. There was nobody out. And literally, these are the words I heard. Drop it now, drop it. You're under arrest. And to a police officer, who I am, those are gun words. I literally thought I was going to get shot. And I didn't know, I couldn't tell what. So I look over about 30 feet away. There's two police officers stationed up underneath an awning, and they are angled at the bar door. And they are obviously screaming at us to harass us, to get at us. And, there's just some point in your life where you're just tired of it, guys. I'm just going to say it like it is. And I yelled over there. I said, you guys, because I recognized it right away. I said, you guys are targeting a gay bar, and that is not right. And, I might have used one cuss word that begins with the letter F.
That's my favorite.
Okay. And then I said, hey, you all should do something better with your time than target a gay bar. And with that, one of those officers took off running, and he ran up to me in a second, threw me to the ground, and handcuffed me.
Wow.
It was crazy after that. My friends were, hey, and then he finds out that not only am I a cop, but two of the women that are with me are police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a captain at this point. And now it's what are we going to do? It looked like a murder scene, I have to tell you. I mean, cars from all over, not all over, but just from that jurisdiction. Like a captain came, a lieutenant came, a couple guys came to see what was going on. And, next thing you know, they're trying to decide, how do we handle this? And they decided they were going to write me tickets. So I was going to get citations for my behavior. And the citations were menacing, disorderly conduct, and public intoxication. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I immediately the next day, because that is policy and procedure, I reported it to my agency. I had to.
Yeah.
And when I reported it, I had to explain what went on. And there you go. I'm outed. I got to tell you, the sheriff at the time, I thought I was going to get fired over it. I honestly did. I was very fearful of that. And that was just 10 years ago. I mean, and he was not happy, because I'll tell you what happened is they dismissed the tickets. And, I got an attorney, and that stuff was gone in a couple of weeks. I mean, there was no merit for that.
No.
But the sheriff was so mad at the time that he gave me 5 days off of work for conduct unbecoming for being in a gay bar. And that's, it's the only discipline that is in my file in my entire career.
What year was that? Did you say soon to be sheriff?
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10. That was 2010.
Yeah. So this is not the 80s. You're saying this is not the 60s. This is not right after World War II. This is 2010 in Ohio.
Coach Woodard says the need to stay
in Kentucky.
safe.
Oh, Kentucky. Sorry, over the line.
Yeah, across the river. And Leslie asks, was there ever a point at which you thought about walking away from the job because of the treatment you received?
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't.
Did you ever want to walk away because of the treatment you received rather than the job itself?
Right.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Always the treatment. I love my job. I mean, I've loved every job I've ever had in uniform. I don't care what I was tasked to do. I enjoyed it. And I have over 100 commendations in my file, by the way, which speaks to the fact of, how much I enjoyed that job. But yeah, the way I was treated, there were times when, and I think people can relate to that. You come home and you say, what am I doing? Should I do something else? And, each time I came back to, continue to do what you love. And that's what I love to do. And I just became very strong is it really, that's what happens, right? When you're faced with these adversities and you continue, it makes you stronger. And that's what it did to me. But I'm not going to, sit here and not say there were some blood, sweat, and tears involved. Because there's
question.
Yeah. How was Thanksgiving with your uncle after all that?
That's what we have.
Yeah.
Don't answer that only because we gotta do some sponsor stuff for a second. But I do want to say, as you're explaining that scene, it was such a vivid scene. The rain, the everything. I can picture you all again, just out for a game, like something the guys would do with no thought about it in the world.
That's right.
And you come out, and I've seen that scene in about 80 cop movies where when finally they get to your back pocket and they see the badge, they're like, oh no. And then everything just kind of dissipates if you're a guy. And if you're a straight guy, better if you're a straight white guy too. But, we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to do some ads, but everyone's thinking that thought as they're hearing your story. Everyone's thinking that thought, saying zero of this happens if Charmaine McGuffey is a dude on his back. Somebody saying gun words, like you said, by the way, best phrase ever for explaining that, because drop it. I would drop everything. What else do you need? I'm a big fan of complying and then being right. So I'm with you. All right. We're going to hit some sponsor stuff and just stick right handy. We're only going to be a few seconds. And when we come back, we're going to ask you about the future. We're going to ask a little bit about Hamilton County and what it's going to take for you to bring your vision and your message to all the people that need it. Don't everybody leave. I'll beat you up. All right, listen.
That's a crime. That's not okay.
I'm out of the jurisdiction. She can't even get me.
She can't even get arrested via Zoom.
I will tell you a sheriff story afterwards, though, when I did not know some of the sheriff's jobs. So we're sponsored by StreamYard.
StreamYard is your grandmother.
No, this one's a real story. It's the story a guy with a Camaro can tell. So StreamYard is a show making software that we use to run this show. StreamYard is what Kerry said, use this because you're stupid. And I went, what?
I said no such thing.
And I said,
I suggested lovingly that I find it easier.
I know better because I'm a male. And I said, this is it. And then we started using it. It's the best show making software in the world.
So
see Brogan, not me, so StreamYard. I just got another $6.10 today because someone bought one today. Make me $12 so I could have a latte and a donut.
We used this before they ever sponsored the show. I use it for my other shows as well. It's just stupid easy to use, and I love it.
So good. I can't find a thing that it doesn't do that I don't want it to do. Ready? Okay. Hey, authors. When Charmaine writes her book, which I absolutely strongly recommend, she's going to need a site to put it on. And why spend all that time making a site from scratch and wondering what goes on an author's site? Why not use the same kind of website that Tom Clancy himself uses? TomClancy.com is run on PubSite. RobinCook.com is run on PubSite. So go to PubSite.com. Authors make a site. Pub-site. Oh, sorry. And it's not that expensive. It's within $1,000 a week.
There's a 14-day free trial. After that, it's $19.99 a month.
Right.
And this is crazy easy to use. It's got all the pieces kind of built into it that an author needs to promote yourself, to promote your book, your appearances, all the things. And it's fully customizable. So check it out. And if you really don't want to do it, they can build it for you for $499, which is like ridiculous, by the way. You can't get a website for that, but Like, even if you don't write a book, get your website from PubSite.
Easier and
PubSite.com.
faster.
Yeah.
Stupid easy. Pub.com. Also a sponsor of Person of the Day, which we will get to. Curious if my neighboring friend from Allen County is still here, because he's a good contender at this present moment.
Oh, nice.
All right, Sheriff-elect. So you become sheriff in January, which is why we still have McGuffey for sheriff.com. You're going to have your wife buy McGuffey is now off thebestsheriff.com or something.
Yes.
Right. New URL for the. You're not running.
Yeah.
When you take office, there's a bunch of stuff you're going to do. There's a lot of paperwork you're going to pick up. There's going to be everybody's nightmares and miseries that you're going to acquire.
Joke's on your uncle, because learning to type helps with the paperwork.
Oh, it was a skill that served me well the rest of my career.
Yeah.
There you go. I had to take typing in 8th grade, and I'm so glad I did. The next thought I have, though, is you're going to want to influence people to make better choices. You're going to want to have people better understand how to interact with LGBTQ. You're going to want look at how trans arrests go. Trans people getting into the prison system, or just even in the jail part. It's not good. It doesn't work so well. So you're going to have the chance to make those things. How do you do that? You were outed. You didn't choose that, but now that's part of the platform. That's a plank up there.
Yes.
How much of that can you do? How gay can you be, Charmaine?
Well,
how gay sheriff can you be?
Apparently pretty gay. I tell you, you're exactly right. I didn't choose this. I ran a very private life, as you can imagine, but I have had to embrace it. When it started happening and I realized I'm not going to have any more privacy, because I don't. My story has played out in newspapers and ways that I didn't write, for sure. Some people write it in a way that I don't agree with because they don't agree with me. But the idea is I do embrace it. And I am a lesbian lifelong. And, because of that, I know a lot of gay people. I know a lot of gay people, transgender people, lesbians. And I know that we have struggled. We've struggled so hard. I mean, back in my younger days, you really literally knew that you'd be fired, and particularly if you were a teacher or something like that. And we all kept each other's confidences. We did. It was, it really was a unspoken rule. You don't out other people because it's dangerous. So, yeah.
It's amazing how that goes forward and the ways that it has to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
When we look into this, when we look into where you're going to take it, are you going to look to do maybe more classes or education for your people? How many do you call them officers? How many people do you have rolling around in trucks with your names on them?
Yeah, so we are 900 strong.
Whoa.
It's a large department. We have the 3rd largest jail in the state of Ohio, which is one of the reasons we really do need to be the model for the state of Ohio, and that is my goal. And, I want to make jail, to answer your question, I want to make jail a place that people come, obviously they have consequences for their behavior. Jail is a very, very harsh place. I promise you that. But in that environment, I want to promote healing. I want to promote good nutrition. I want to promote education, and I want to promote motivating people to move on with their life, while, quite frankly, they live in a very harsh environment. And there are people out there that say, oh, well, these people were in jail and they committed a crime and they should be punished. Believe me, if you come to jail, any time you spend in there is well served. And you can get the point in a day. You can get the point in a couple days. And if you're tasked to live in there for 6 months, believe me, that's hard time.
But that's my good money getting spent on bad people, Charmaine. That's the story, right? That's
right. It is the story. But here's the issue. Your good money continues to get spent on bad people because we don't change them in any way to be better people. And when we front load the system and we put money into people as they come to our attention, whether it's because of mental health, homelessness, addiction, and we work to fix those people, if you will. We work to give them opportunities and so forth. And sometimes it's medication. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to help people. Those are people that don't come back to the system. And or we are not using your money for the same exact task over and over again.
Now I'm thinking about a former guest we had on. We had two people from Televerde, and they have call centers that operate out of women's prisons. And they
Yes.
give job training. And we had somebody who graduated from their program and was now, on the outside living her life, had a job with the company. They help turn people around. It seems like exactly that. It's like you teach job skills, you invest in people. And then when they come back out, the recidivism rate for Televerde employees is like way lower than the national
Massively
rate.
lower.
So like 6% versus 75%. It's an insane difference. So the approach
Absolutely.
you're talking about has been shown to work in other contexts.
It has, and we need fearless leaders that will embrace it. It hasn't been the popular model because, quite frankly, we were embedded in this war on drugs, and everybody that runs for office wants to be seen as somebody who is going to lock people up if they, do this or that wrong and that kind of thing. And I'm not opposed to people locking people up for behavior that needs to be corrected. Certainly that. And there are some people, quite frankly, I've met them. They will stay in prison the rest of their lives, and need to, because we need to be protected in our society. So while I've been termed as a bleeding heart, I am also a very law and order. I'm a very law and order sheriff. My platform is this: we're all going to follow the rules, and that's not just the prisoners. That is officers, the men and women that wear that uniform. And by the way, I like to say this because I like people to know there are so many great police officers out there, so many great officers wearing that uniform. I tell you, I know them, man, they're wearing it for the right reason, and they go through some stress. They have difficult jobs, and they do very, very well. The officers that I talk about when I talk about accountability are people that are doing, are the small, very small group of people that do the wrong thing and haven't been held accountable, and therefore it gets worse. So, I want people to know that I absolutely am a law and order sheriff-elect.
Carl says prison and jail reform is so important. Giving people a future helps them not return to their past. Leslie says, some people are bad people. Most are good people who made bad choices. I mean, they're at least neutral, Leslie. I'll give you that. Some people are somewhere in the middle,
Right.
middling.
And, I've spent almost my entire career inside that jail. So what I learned inside that jail is what drives people to certain behaviors, and how people end up in circumstances. In jail is certainly the worst circumstance of your life. And when you start talking to people and you understand their story and where they came from, one of the things I did for the women, in fact, was I brought in peer mentors. The heroin recovery pod, that was a key factor in helping these women move along. I mean, you have to talk to people that have been there. Well, I couldn't get peer mentors into the jail because I was told, hey, these women can't come in to counsel the addicts, the women that are recovering, because these women all have felonies on their record. Well, of course they do. They're peer mentors. That's the point. So
that works.
Yeah, exactly. So we changed the policy, and we did it very, and that's the thing I like to note to people, these changes came about over years. I mean, I worked years to put these programs in place because you can't just let anybody into your jail. You really can't. I mean, you have to vet people. People have to be there for the right reason. So those are things that I paid attention to, and they paid off. What we found out with the women in particular, and the men too, but when the women came out of that jail door, instead of walking down to the corner and buying some more heroin, they were calling their peer mentors. They were seeking out housing, places to go, because there were people to help them do that.
It's a whole system that needs to happen too, because once they're out at the door, someone's got to be willing to have a job available. Someone's got to have that bakery that seems to exist.
Someone's
in
got to
every
rent an
city.
apartment to them.
Right. And understand that, it's a certain circumstance, that people get to there. It's been an interesting year. I want to go backwards just a tiny bit, then we're going to get ready to wrap up. But so I have a lot of friends in law enforcement. It's been an interesting year for this because of the Black Lives Matter movement, because of all the protests, because of just huge examples of the worst choices that law enforcement can make in a tough spot. What's been tricky is that, the typical response is sort of like, well, there's just a few bad apples, and it's really starting to feel like a bad orchard because it's out there. But the way you're handling it, I like the language you're using for it, and I think that it's harder for that kind of behavior to exist if everyone's modeling a different kind of behavior. And I think that's sort of what you're pointing to, is that even back when you started, it would be perfectly fine. Like the system supported that. So are you doing anything, or can you do anything besides just being you to inspire the next little girl with, handcuffs and a badge in the backyard to decide to be the next you? What are you doing to get more caring, nurturing people who can still be tough on law? Because we want that out there.
Well, I'm doing what I did as the major. This is what I'm going to do. As the major, I filled in the moat around the castle. I dropped the drawbridge, and I put the welcome sign out. And people came when they were welcomed into that community. And, there is distrust with law enforcement. There are people who have clashed, and there are ways that we've created these huge, caverns in between us and battle lines and so forth. What I will do is just that. Put the welcome sign out. When you come to our house, you will be treated with respect. You will be a person who can embrace us or embrace whatever it is you're trying to get accomplished. And I tell you, I've met so many fabulous people on this journey. It's amazing. I never thought I'd take this journey. I didn't plan on it, certainly that. But as we climbed the mountain, and that's really what it was, you guys. I mean, it was a climb. I was so down. I mean, my career was over in 15 minutes. My 33-year stellar career was over in 15 minutes. And I didn't even see the report that my firing was based on. They wouldn't give it to me. So, it was a climb. And during that climb, there were times when I certainly thought, God, can we really do it? Can we go any farther? Can we actually win this election? Can we win the primary? There was so much opposition. And each time I really felt that way, there on the climb, somebody reached down and pulled us up further. And that's the LGBTQ community, the Victory Fund. Those were people in the community who believed in what we were doing and believe in what we want to change. And every time somebody put a hand down and helped us up just a little further.
We got to move on, but I want to say law enforcement has never been a super big recipient of money from the LGBTQ community. This must have been a very bizarre ass time for them to be writing that check at home. Like, money. All right, we got to do person of the day, and we're going to ask you one final question of the show. So we're going to do person of the day.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
And I don't think I was really planning to give it to our new friend William Slays Jr., who I've never seen here before, but I haven't seen a comment from him in a little while. And because I insulted Rex by saying he was from Oregon, I think I will go with Rex. So what a great story. Thank you for having her on the show. Sheriff-elect Charmaine McGuffey, we have just one last thing to do, which is this is called the Backpack Show because the idea is that the world is changing. We're on shifting sands. Everything's a little different. We can't bring everything with us. We can only put what's going to fit in a backpack. What physical or metaphorical thing like hope or a harmonica, what goes into your backpack, Sheriff-elect Charmaine McGuffey?
Well, what you put in your backpack is confidence. You put confidence in your backpack because you have to be confident that you are going to make decisions that will serve you well And the way you do that is you ask yourself a question, and it's the question you put in your backpack. Will I be proud of myself when I wake up tomorrow and see myself in that mirror? That's what you put in the backpack, because that will be your guide, and you hold that line. And that way, put a big, strong, sturdy rope in there, because it will be a climb. When you decide to say, I'm confident, I'm going to follow my ethical, foundation, you're going to grab onto that rope and you're going to start climbing.
I love it. I love it.
You're amazing, Charmaine. Thank you for all you do and all you shared with us. Rex says, what a great story. Thank you for having her. And Rex says, yay, get an apple. That's a whole from our previous person of the day graphic.
Yay.
That's what you get for person of the day is an apple.
By yourself.
I'll tell you my sheriff story really quick. So I live in Massachusetts, right on the border of New Hampshire. What you need to know about New Hampshire is that whole live free or die thing. Boy, do they feel it up there. It is sort of like MAGA country light. Sort of down where your Kentucky border is. So I am in a black 2010 Chevy Camaro SS. It's black, so it doesn't really say come get me, but you see it when you're on the road if you're a law enforcement officer. So I'm driving it reasonably, but past my limits. And I go past New Hampshire sheriff car. And as I go past him, I look right at him, and he's on the highway. I'm on the highway. I pass him, and he just sort of looks at me, and I see him go. And I thought, well, here it goes. So he flips the lights on, and he pulls me over, and he goes, "Did you somehow not see me?" Here's the part you're going to appreciate. He goes, "You didn't see me?" I said, "I totally saw you, but you're a sheriff. You're not a state cop. You're not going to pull me over for speeding." He goes, "I totally pull you over for speeding. I'm a cop." I said, "Yeah, but you're not that kind of cop. Aren't you like the one that watches like the guys pick the trash off the that's what you're worried about, right?" And he's like, "No." Wow. He goes, "You're going to get a ticket." I said, "I'm down for the ticket. I know how fast I was doing. You don't even have to ask. I just didn't know that was your job." So he comes back to the car and he's laughing and he's got the ticket. He goes, "I can't give you this." He goes, "I can't believe you." And I said, "Look,
how many of
I
us
don't know
said that?"
I don't know. And I have 4 other law enforcement stories just like that, where the cop is so bamboozled that they're like, I can't do this to you. But I learned that from my grandmother. My grandmother was a notorious rogue with good intentions. And so
another reprobate on the public streets.
I'll tell you, one of the things we smuggled from Canada into the United States